NOTUS is a podcast from Notice, hosted by Reese Gorman and presented by BP.
When you allow your agents to kill somebody, Alex Preddy on the street, and then you won't even tell the public who they are, confirm who they are, or hold anybody accountable. When you become that lawless, then I think you should be disbanded. We will have immigration enforcement, but it shouldn't be done in this lawless way by these reckless people.
Welcome back to On Notice. I'm Reese Gorman, and today's guest is Congressman Joaquin Castro. Castro, a Democrat, has represented a San Antonio, Texas area district since 2013. He serves on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He was also an impeachment manager during President Donald Trump's second impeachment trial in 2021. His twin brother, Julian, served as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development during Obama's second term. And Joaquin Castro has been in the news lately. Castro escorted a 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father from an ICE detention facility in Dilley, Texas, back to Minnesota. We talked to him about the effort to get Liam out of detention, the state of Texas politics, and, of course, like we do on every episode, his path to Congress. Stay tuned for that conversation. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Behind every BP fill-up, thousands of people across America go to work every day. People producing energy offshore, people turning it into products at our refineries, people doing R&D to make products that are better for your engine, people trading and shipping fuels to their destinations, and the people who help you at one of BP's growing family of retail stations. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.
Today we are joined by Congressman Joaquin Castro from Texas. He represents San Antonio, my hometown. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. I greatly appreciate it.
Good to talk to a fellow San Antonian.
I know, it's nice. Spurs are doing good this year, so I'm extremely ecstatic after the last couple of years. So I want to jump right into a very serious topic. Last week, you escorted 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father from a detention facility in Texas back to Minnesota. Can you tell me about that and what that was like?
Well, it starts the week before because this 7-day notice requirement was in place for members of Congress to go visit or inspect this Dilley and other detention centers. And I had put in notice the day before Liam's case broke, like the news broke and the pictures came out with his cap and his backpack and everything. So when that story broke, I knew that I was going to be there the next week. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to do everything that I can to try to help and try to get this boy out of there. And so we made contact with his attorney and the family. And then I had asked several days before, I had asked other members of Congress, I said, hey, I'm going to go to Dilley. Does anybody want to go? And the only person, because of the tight schedule, the person that could make it and could go was Jasmine Crockett. And so, it was Jasmine and I that went there last Wednesday. We went into the detention center, visited Liam and his dad for about 30 minutes. And, he was listless, lethargic. He hadn't been eating. He was missing his family. He was scared of the guards, according to his dad. And then that was Wednesday. On Saturday, a judge granted the writ of habeas corpus. The order was issued on Saturday morning. And I got a call asking if we could be helpful in picking them up. And they said, yeah, well, we'll release him at 7:00. And so I was at a rally in Austin with James Tallarico and a bunch of other people. And I went to Dilley and picked them up, both of them. It's a trailer prison, really. They gave me, you see me in that video carrying all this stuff because it's a prison. When you come in, they take all the stuff you're wearing. They take your jewelry or watch or whatever. They inventory it. And then when you leave, just like a prison, they give you everything back. So that's what you see me carrying there is their stuff. But he was excited to be out, emotional, but just excited to be going back home.
For the listeners, can you explain what happened, how they ended up from Minnesota down to Texas?
Yeah, I mean, they were allowed to come into the country during the Biden years. President Biden the administration had created what is known as CBP-1. Well, this CBP-1 app, which became controversial and there were a lot of people that didn't like it on the Republican side, especially. But it was designed as a way to stop people from rushing the border because there were so many people that were coming up to the southern border. Americans have always said, hey, we're for immigration, but we want people to do it the right way. We want an orderly process. So they went through that process of applying for asylum through CBP-1, and you get vetted, and then the US government tells people who qualify, okay, now that you've gone through this process, you can wait in the United States while we determine your asylum case. So that's what they were doing in Minnesota, is they were waiting for this asylum case to be resolved. Adrian, his dad, told me that they had an asylum hearing scheduled for February when all of this happened. They were just shell-shocked, like a lot of other people detained in Dilley, that they did it the right way and they got dumped in rural Texas in a trailer prison.
What was traveling back with them like?
Well, we got in the car and everything, and the mayor of Dilley was there, and these 6 police officers, maybe the whole police force in Dilley, because it's a small town in Texas. They were there to escort us out, and they were really nice to Liam and to his dad, and they gave me a little cross to give to him and a little trinket, with a little character to give to him. The mayor was very kind, said hello to her. She said hello to Liam and his dad. And then we left the parking lot there. It's a very dark road there in Dilley. And I asked him, hey, is there something that you want to eat or do or whatever? And he said that he wanted papitas, that he wanted French fries. And so we went up the road. The first McDonald's when you head up from Dilley back to San Antonio is in Pearsall, which is like, 10 miles away from Dilley. But I was kind of worried because, I got these 2 people that have been on the news like nonstop, right, for a week. And I'm concerned about their safety and their security, and also getting them back to San Antonio for this 6:30 a.m. flight. And so once we get a few miles past Dilley, well, the escorts, like, they drop off. And so it's just like us, my staff and I, and we're going through the back roads. So the McDonald's in Dilley is not on the main highway. You got to go through these back roads. We get him food. We got him a Happy Meal. You could tell he was becoming himself again, still traumatized, obviously, from that time there, but happy. And his dad, same thing. We got him a milkshake and everything, and they were in a better mood. And I had asked some friends, longtime friends that I knew had a guest house in San Antonio, if they could host them for the evening. And they said, yeah, of course, they would be honored to. And so I took them over to their home at about 9 o'clock on Saturday night. And then, we picked them up again at 4:30 in the morning to head to the airport on Saturday morning for the one nonstop on Delta from San Antonio to Minneapolis. Fortunately, we were still able to get seats to take off.
Wow. I saw the letter you posted online you wrote to Liam. What inspired that?
I got everything happened in such a hurry, and as I thought about it, I was on the plane and it's like a 3-hour flight or something. And I was on the plane and I thought, like, yeah, here you have a 5-year-old boy. And in the end, what is he going to take from this experience? Right? Like when he looks back when he's 25 and 45 and, 70 years old, what is he going to take from this experience? And I thought, man, it would be a real shame if this young boy who did nothing wrong, who spent a week in this trailer prison, if he lets, like, if he defines America by that experience. And I thought, as an American, mostly, I just want to write him and say, hey, I hope you won't judge America by your days in Dilley, but by all of the people all over the country who offered toys and clothes and money and legal services and everything to help him get out. The people that were touched by his story. And I mentioned Robert F. Kennedy gave this very famous speech in South Africa on their Day of Affirmation in 1966, where he talked about different people who have moved the world and talked about, there are, of course, these very historic figures who have done incredible things, but he also talked about ordinary people who in their own way and in smaller ways help move the world. And I said, even as a young boy, you move the world. And I hope that one day he realizes that.
Have you had a communication with him since?
No, I dropped him off Sunday morning. I'm going to check in on him, but I thought I'm going to give him a few days just because the experience for him was traumatic in Dilley. But I could tell as we got out into the public and people started realizing who he was on the plane. These are people that are, a lot of them are Minnesotans who are going back to Minnesota. I thought, and then the pilots, I mean, everybody's really nice. The Delta folks, The San Antonio police, like escorted us when we were in the airport. So everybody was really nice. But I thought, like, I don't know if this young man, this young boy, like, I don't, he's just all of a sudden getting all of this attention. And I don't think fully understands why. So that kind of concerned me too. Is like, I think he needed to get back home with his mom and his older brother, I believe, and get some sense of normalcy if it's possible. But I will check in on him this week. But wanted to give him some time to hang out.
Since Minnesota and the shooting and the killing of Alex Preddy, Greg Bovino has been pushed aside. You've seen Chrissy Nome even sidelined to an extent, and Tom Homan's come in. Have you had any conversations with Homan just about immigration enforcement in general since this?
The last time I had a conversation with Tom Homan was in 2017. I can't even remember if it was a group of members of the Foreign Affairs Committee, although I don't know why that would have been, but I was part of a group of people that met with him in this kind of roundtable setting. I remember Mike McCall was there because I know Mike from Texas. And he started explaining the Trump one policies and all that and the immigration stuff they were going to do and everything. And we had a very, very tense exchange because I said, well, he was talking about all these border areas. And I said, well, like, if you're going to do some kind of immigration crackdown, I mean, are you going to be applying it fairly across the United States? And so he was just like, I could tell that he was a very stubborn, very headstrong guy. And I think that's been proven now, but that was the last conversation that I've had with him. The administration now is very, like, not transparent, very secretive. They don't make themselves available. We've even had this problem in Congress just today on this Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. They won't even send they won't even send State Department witnesses when a Republican chair is asking for those witnesses. As somebody that covers Congress, that's very unusual.
Yeah. I know I reported too late last year that even for Homeland Security, I mean, Chairman Garbarino is trying to get for the worldwide threats hearing, which has happened every year, is trying to get Nome, Patel, and one other person to join. And Nome was the only person that would refuse to, she was not even engaging.
Right. Like, if you have an administration of one party, sometimes they'll do that to the other party. And then you got to threaten subpoenas and all that. And they do this kind of legal dance. But to see it where you have a Republican president administration not want to go testify in front of a Republican controlled Congress, that's pretty unusual.
Especially when it's the party in power too. Like over half the questions are going to be cakewalks for the most part, and so it is
Or
very
more than half because
yeah.
they've got like 60% of the members are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about obviously CBP and ICE have a big presence in Texas? What is kind of your relationship with them there in your district in Texas writ large, and then also, I mean, do you support them being there? What do you think is their role should be just kind of in Texas?
There's two places that you really see ICE, that you really see them, right? And really, well, really one for Americans. When people hear ICE right now, they're thinking of what's going on in the street in Minnesota or what happened in LA or Chicago. But ICE is running these detention centers along with the private prison companies, Geo and Core Civic. So there are the detention centers and then there what's going on in the street. No, I mean, listen, I think when you put out as an agency, memo that says that you can go into people's homes without a warrant, when you allow your agents to kill somebody, Alex Preddy on the street, and then you won't even tell the public who they are, confirm who they are, or hold anybody accountable. When you become that lawless, then I think you should be disbanded. I don't think that you should have a role in immigration enforcement. That's not to say that we won't have immigration enforcement. We will have immigration enforcement, but it shouldn't be done in this lawless way by these reckless people. In Texas and in some other states, you have an added layer to that because Greg Abbott has deployed the Texas National Guard to work alongside ICE in the detention centers. They're fully embedded in Dilley and other detention centers right now doing deportation work. And he doesn't allow them to wear their uniforms. They're having to dress in civilian clothes, camouflage in civilian clothes. So it's very unusual. It's a very unusual thing that's going on in this period in American history right now when it comes to ICE, our military, and law enforcement.
You voted against the CR for DHS, as the majority of Democrats did. a lot of them are calling for reforms. Are there reforms that could be had that would get you to vote for this bill, or do you of the mindset we need to disband it and then build it up from scratch again?
I think that we have to build up a separate organization from scratch. Now, look, I mean, in Congress, because of the filibuster, because you have people of different perspectives and parties and so forth, if you were going to say, oh, come on, like, what's your compromise on this? If you told me that ICE was going to be responsible for customs only, for example, where they're not out on the street enforcing immigration, or they're not out in detention centers, I might say, okay, you're going to just do customs enforcement of some kind. But otherwise, no, I think that you've got to go back to the drawing board and come up with something that's also appropriate for this time in American history. ICE and DHS were creations of the War on Terror around 2003. And it was a mix of counterterrorism with immigration. And so it really affected the way that the government spoke about, approached, treated immigrants, all of this presumption of criminality, this presumption of threat, all of it. And ICE, I think, has just taken that to the nth degree now, where they're assuming you're a criminal. They're assuming you're a threat. They're assuming you're a bad person. When you go door to door or business to business and start looking for like who's speaking Spanish or which brown person is there or whatever, I mean, you're violating the Constitution. We're not going to be doing it that way. We shouldn't do it that way.
Stay with us as we'll be right back with more On Notice after a quick break.
Behind the delivery trucks that keep your life stocked, thousands of employees at BP go to work every day. People bringing a new offshore production platform online. People making our refineries capable of more, like making renewable diesel from agricultural waste. People trading and shipping fuels to our customers. And people helping truckers fill up and get maintenance at our convenient locations. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.
I want to shift gears here a little bit to Texas specifically. Completely new map. What is your new district like?
Well, so they needed to dump the Democrats somewhere, and so they put even more Democrats in my district. My district was already a fairly solid Democratic district, but I think it went up another 4 or 5 points in terms of Democratic index, and so yeah, so I'm one of what is supposed to be only about 8 seats that they would consider safe Democratic seats.
They created would be 8 safe Democratic seats. We just saw last week a special election in the Texas State Senate, and a district Trump won by 17 points. A Democrat won that by double digits. Do you think there will be backlash to Republicans in this election?
Oh, there's absolutely backlash. I do think that the tide is turning. I can't talk too much politics in this building, but yeah, I think that there's incredible backlash because of the extremism of the Texas Republican Party. And it makes sense because what happens to a party over the years is when they're so dominant in a state, then the whole action is in the primary. And when, any primary, Democrat or Republican, when you have a really heated primary, people tend to move towards the edge. And over time, when you do that over and over, in this case with Republicans in the Texas Republican primary, you're just going to get out so far out there that at some point you start losing even core constituencies. I just met with a group of people from the South Texas construction industry. I mean, these are builders who are like, they were the bulwark of the Republican movement down there. And part of the reason that people started moving over, and they said like, and I told them, you guys did this to yourself. And I think they agree. And they said like, basically, we're not going to make that same mistake again. No, I mean, people are upset. We've had massive walkouts in Texas high schools, the anti-ICE walkouts the governor is now trying to crack down on. So there's a lot of energy, a lot of activism, and Texans have had enough.
I want to ask one more political question, then we'll move on to something else. Big Senate race. You mentioned both of the Democratic primary challengers in the Senate, or candidates in the Senate race. You
Yeah.
mentioned Talrico and Jasmine Crockett. How do you see that primary playing out in your head?
Well, I mean, first, you have 2 incredibly talented, gifted people that are running in that primary in James and Jasmine. And I've been friends with both of them. I serve with Jasmine now, obviously went with her to Dilley, have done other work with her. And James, I supported when he first ran in 2018 over in Williamson County. And when my brother ran for president in 2019, he was one of the speakers at the kickoff. And so we've been friends ever since. And I told both folks, I'm going to let them run their race, but I will be supporting whoever emerges from that primary because I'll do everything that I can for change in Texas in 2026.
To change topics a little bit, my colleague Kate Nocera here told me you were once friendly with Louis Gohmert, who was quite the opposite of you politically. You've been in Congress since 2013. Can you talk about what has changed for you there as far as vibes? And do you still have friendships with Republicans such as Gohmert?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more that we would be jovial and stuff, right? When I see people, I have a pretty good interpersonal relationship with almost everybody the Congress is 435 people. So there's some people that you just never interact with or meet. But of the people that I do, yeah, like there really isn't anybody where there's real animosity or I just can't talk to somebody you know. So yeah, so when Louis was in Congress, we would joke around once in a while and people will ask, like, how can you even talk to that person or hang out or whatever? Well, remember, like, I already have high blood pressure. So if I was always steaming or angry about about half of the Congress, I would literally like have a stroke or a heart attack here at some point, which I don't want. So I try to take things in stride. A lot of the bills that I filed are bipartisan bills where we have a Republican co-sponsor and Republican, sponsors of the bill. So we're trying to find common ground where I can. That said, obviously, like we've got some very deep disagreements.
Who would you say is the Republican you're closest with right now?
It's before their primary, so I don't know if I want to get
You don't want
any.
to hurt them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you ask me again in the second week of March? But like some people in the Texas delegation are good friends, a few folks on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Yeah, I mean, I've got good working relationships with a group of folks.
What made you originally want to run for Congress?
Well, yeah, I grew up in a household where both my parents were really involved in the Mexican civil rights movement and just ingrained in my brother and I this sense that when government works right, not that it's going to do everything for everyone, but that when it works right, that it can help create opportunity in people's lives. And I was spent 10 years in the state legislature working on a lot of education issues, veterans issues, and other things. And, and so when this opportunity came up to run for Congress, I thought, well, there's other issues that I don't get a chance to work on here that I'd love to work on in Congress. And that's why I started, for example, in foreign affairs as soon as I got here. My first hearing in the Foreign Affairs Committee was Hillary Clinton testifying on Benghazi.
Wow.
So it was like trial by fire right away.
Yeah. You have a twin brother, Julian, who was HUD secretary for Obama, ran for president in 2020. You're both very politically active still. Do
Well,
you
my
have any
brother's a has-been now, but yeah, but
do you never let forget it? You're like, I'm still in elected office and you're not?
no, he's definitely enjoying himself more, but no, he's doing really well. Like he's heading up the Latino Community Foundation. They're doing great work. They're actually creating an ICE accountability fund really soon. So they're really involved in those things too.
Do you have any good twin hijinks stories going on?
Well, years back when my brother was running for mayor, people thought that we switched places on this riverboat when really like we never switched. People just thought that I was him because he had invited me to go on the boat. So I get on the boat right on the parade and he was supposed to come and then he calls me a few minutes before and says, "Hey, I'm stuck at this like neighborhood association debate." And so I'm on the boat and I'm there like it's taking off and because I'm a twin and I've been confused my whole life like for him, I don't really think anything of it. But then, so like it's a parade, like I'm waving to everybody. And then one of his opponents was on the boat and he complains that I'm pretending to be my brother. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Like, what? So anyway, like it's politics. So they made a big deal about it. But there's once in a while, there's still people to this day that said, no, I don't trust you. You switch places with your brother. Okay.
That's funny. Do you ever have to get extra security when he was a cabinet secretary and people were like, maybe confuse you? Do you ever have a detail for that?
No, I was just me by myself hearing people yell at me for potholes that didn't get fixed or, housing issues or whatever it was.
And you're just like, I can't help you. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, Congress, as you probably know, just like in the last, I don't know, the last several months, just appropriated money basically for personal security. But it's really a sign of the times that every member of Congress now can hire personal security.
I was in Texas this past week for traveling with a member for doing a profile, and we met with Roger Williams, who had 2 security guards with him wherever
Yeah.
he went. And it is truly like a sign of the times, like you said, that this is a necessity to have appropriated for members to have. Tulsi Gabbard, there's been a whistleblower report that nobody has seen, nobody
Yeah.
has read. There's allegations in there. Want to know what is your sense, if any, of what's in this whistleblower report, and do you expect that her team will ever transmit this over to Congress?
They should, and the Intelligence Committee, with its oversight, should call her in and do a full investigation on this. Remember, we're already in a skiff, so it's not like you're even asking for a huge public meeting. You're talking about a classified setting. Right now, that report may just be with the Gang of Eight, for example, rather than the full Intelligence Committee. But the full committee should be able to hear exactly what happened. I mean, that's some serious stuff when your director of national intelligence, when they're going over to Georgia with the FBI and the FBI is confiscating ballots from the 2020 election. That's very unusual. And we got to get an explanation about what happened.
Well, Mr. Castro, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have votes here in a little bit, so I'll let you go, but I greatly appreciate your time. And then thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the halls.
Go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, yes, sir. On Notice is a production of Notice, and it's hosted by me, Reese Sportman. This show is produced by Notice and the team at the Podglomerate. Special thanks to Kate Nocera and Justin Pellegrini. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You could send us a note at podcast@notus.com. And if you like this episode, leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts. See you next week.
Behind every BP fill-up, thousands of people across America go to work every day. People producing energy offshore, people turning it into products at our refineries, people doing R&D to make products that are better for your engine, people trading and shipping fuels to their destinations, and the people who help you at one of BP's growing family of retail stations. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.